Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Marissa. I am an amateur runner. I just ran my second marathon, which was the Richmond Marathon. If you've been following me for a while, you may have seen some updates on my YouTube shorts as well as some of my other social media on some brief clips of how the marathon went. But I wanted to get on YouTube here and do a formal recap with you guys and completely reflect on my training and my goals at the start of my training versus the goals at the end of my training, as well as talk a little bit about how I thought the whole marathon experience went and how I thought the race itself was, and also reflect on how I've been feeling now 1 week out from my marathon and what's to come. So let's get into it. So for anyone that saw my very first YouTube video, you know that my original time goal for the Richmond Marathon was a 3:40. This was a goal that I based on my very first marathon, which I ran in a 3:54. So essentially I took that time from my first marathon and I came up with a goal that I thought was going to be a challenge for me, but also attainable. And reflecting on my very first marathon, I definitely thought it was a challenge, obviously, but I definitely came away from that race knowing that I probably could have pushed a little bit harder and ran a little bit faster. So the start of this training, that was the time goal that I had in mind. So I was basing everything on an 8:20 mile pace and kind of had that time goal in the back of my head the entire time. However, as my training progressed, so did my goals. The first half of my training, I started to be able to run my longer runs faster than an 8:20 average and honestly felt really comfortable doing so. So slowly but surely that 3:40 became a 3:30. And it was really my half marathon mid-training that really spiked my confidence and was a game changer for me. I ran the Ashland half marathon in a 1:37, which was an 11-minute PR for me. I had a really strong negative split in this race and honestly felt amazing the entire time. It was probably the best race I've ever had, and I hit such a runner's high during that run that I don't know that I'll have a better run than that day. I just felt amazing the entire time. It was after that race that I really started to believe that a Boston Marathon qualifying time was in the cards for me. And that's when my goal of a 3:30 became a 3:25. Now the second half of my training started to get really tough for me, both mentally and physically. My confidence during this time was kind of all over the place. There were some days that I felt super confident in myself and felt great. And then other days I felt like I couldn't even hit my original 3:40 goal. I was definitely getting this strong sense of imposter syndrome during this time period. This was also around the time that I started running with a friend who is a much faster, much better runner than I am. She really pushed me and we started doing much longer, tougher, and faster workouts. But because of those workouts, I was starting to hit really good times within my long runs. I was working in speed sessions during those 22 mile long runs where I was hitting the back half of those runs at a strong 7:25 minute pace. And this is what further spiked my confidence, and my new goal at the end of the training block became a sub 3:20. So essentially I went from a 3:40 all the way down to a sub 3:20 by the end of my training block. I still knew that going into this race though, that a 3:20 for me was still a pretty ambitious goal, and I really wasn't sure if it was attainable for me, but I had such high hopes for it. I hadn't raced a marathon in 4 years, so I was basically a newbie again to racing. And I also knew that anything can happen in a race that long. You know, when you're out there running for 3 hours, who knows what could happen, right? You can get GI issues, you can get leg cramps, you can burn out, all of the above. So I really tried to go into the race with more of an open mind, curiosity to see what my body can do. And my official chip time for the Richmond Marathon ended up being a 3:21:18. So I missed it by just under a minute and a half, unfortunately. So the time surrounding the marathon race itself felt so surreal. When you train for something for that long and for that hard, for just one event, one day, one 3.5 hour time block, it just doesn't feel real when the day finally comes. My family actually came in from out of town to see me race and to support me, which was so incredible to have them. The morning of the race, my sister woke up early with me at 3 a.m. to braid my hair, which was so sweet of her. My other sister made a bunch of signs for my family to carry and hold and meet me at multiple different points along the course, which was also amazing and so supportive. I also had a friend who literally turned on her TV and watched me on Garmin Live Track run the race course, as well as updating my friends in a group chat about how I was doing and my paces along the way, which was so fun. I also had other friends along the course who were actually living in Richmond cheering for me. So I felt truly incredibly loved and supported on this day, which was just an amazing feeling. Running a marathon does really become such a wonderful, supportive, and community event. There really is nothing like it. We also had incredible weather the morning of. We were originally supposed to have pretty cold weather in the low 30s. And at one point, I think there was rain on the forecast like a week or two out, but we ended up having completely dry weather. It ended up being in the low 50s to start, so much warmer than expected. And it was overcast, so no direct sun in your face. It was honestly the perfect weather. The starting line itself was so electric. It felt like a total out-of-body experience at that point. All of the nerves and excitement packed with thousands of people all around you is just wild and totally unexplainable. But soon we were all off on the course. The beginning itself was just a blur, honestly. I just felt like I was just trying to find my place, my rhythm, and kind of weaving around a bunch of other people. And it really wasn't until like 5 miles in that I started to really assess how I was feeling, asking myself how I was doing. And unfortunately, I did not feel great from the start. I'm honestly not sure why this was. I just did not feel mentally in it from the beginning, which is pretty disappointing, obviously, since you work so hard for just that one event. I felt like even at the beginning, the pace that I was holding felt really difficult, when in most of my training runs, I felt really strong holding that pace. The course itself was pretty hilly, but I was expecting that since I had run the course previously in training runs, but the elevation definitely got to me a lot more than I expected it to. I've also been dealing with a lot of issues with GERD over the past month or so, and I think a lot of that was brought on by stress with my new job, as well as a lot of stress and pressure that I was feeling towards this race specifically. But unfortunately, that made taking in all of my gels extremely difficult and extremely painful. Every 4-ish miles when I had to take a gel, I felt immediate burning in my throat, immediate stomach pain and issues, and I honestly don't think I finished an entire gel packet at all during the race, which was tough because you want to be getting in enough carbs so that you can have enough energy to finish the race really strong. So I think that did not help either. But despite all of that, I was still able to hold a pretty solid 7:25 to 7:30 minute pace for the first 15 to 16 miles. But then after that, that's when I really started to struggle. Right around mile 16, there was a pretty steady incline for a good portion of that course. And mentally, I was losing a lot more steam at this point. And unfortunately, that is when my pace started to slow down. I kind of ended up backing off to like a 7:50 pace. I was really struggling up until mile 18 when I saw some of my family and then my friends a little bit after that. And that seemed to give me a little bit of a second wind, seeing them and hearing them cheer me on. It gave me a little bit more juice to get me through until I hit mile 20 and then started to fade again. And honestly, those last 6 miles were a total blur. I honestly feel like I kind of blacked out. I was just staring at the ground the whole time, which sucked because I felt like there were a lot of really fun groups along that section of the course that were cheering, that had confetti, that were screaming, and I just felt so dead and I couldn't fully appreciate the course itself, which is tough to not be able to really fully experience that. And I know anyone running is going to hit that point where it just gets really hard and you can't fully appreciate everything going on around you. But I was really hoping during that course to feel good enough to fully appreciate that. and it just unfortunately was not my day. But luckily at the very end, I was able to find enough adrenaline just to kick it to the final finish line. So I'll be honest, when I first looked at my time, I was pretty disappointed, which makes me really sad because how far I've come, I shouldn't be disappointed in myself. But I think we are all so competitive with ourselves, and I had a clear time goal in mind and I didn't hit it. And I just felt like at first that I failed. But after reflecting for a week and taking some time to think on it, I am trying to reframe my perspective. Marathon is not just a time goal, and it certainly wasn't for me originally. I was using this almost like therapy. I recently left a career that was not for me. I worked for some pretty horrible people, and I spent 8 months unemployed, searching for a job. Really, running was the only thing that kept me grounded and kept me going and gave me something to work for, and really got me through some really dark moments this past year. And honestly, that had nothing to do with the race itself. That was all the training, all the early mornings, the discipline, the setbacks and the breakthroughs. That's all what made me not only a stronger runner, but also come to peace with a lot of the situations that I was dealing with outside of running. It really helped me heal as a person, and becoming a better runner and hitting that time was just an added bonus. So I think really thinking back this past week and reframing my mindset really helped me to feel a lot better coming out of this race. And I am sad that I initially had a lot of those feelings of disappointment in myself, but I am glad that I kind of sat with those feelings. I wrote a lot of those feelings down, which honestly helped me a lot. And I know that 320 goal is very doable for me. I missed it by just a little bit. I didn't have a good day on race day. So I think on another day, I could have easily hit that goal. But overall, super proud of the progress that I've seen in myself. At the beginning of this year, I could barely hold 3 miles and an 8-minute pace. I was honestly stopping at like mile 2 because I couldn't hold an 8-minute pace for that long. And just a week ago, I ran a 7:40 average marathon. So it is truly incredible what all of the hard work and dedication and grit and consistency and pushing yourself really can do for you. And it's just one of those sports that you can really consistently see yourself grow in, which is super exciting. And it makes me super excited to see what more I can do in this sport and see how much more I can push myself. With the Richmond Marathon now behind me, I am more motivated than ever, especially just with missing my goal shy of 1.5 minutes. So I'm definitely not done with the marathon distance. I thought I was going to take a little bit more of a break than what I'm actually going to take. Just because, I ran my first marathon 4 years ago, and it took me 4 years to mentally be ready to run another one. But I feel super excited with my fitness level right now that I do plan to run another marathon in March to try and go for that sub 320 again. I will be running the Newport News One City Marathon in Newport News, Virginia. So very excited. This time I'll be going in with a little bit more experience, especially on the racing end. I do still have to work out my GERD issues. I'm probably going to be switching up my gels, so that's going to be a big component of my upcoming build, is just kind of trying to find some new gels that are a little bit better on my stomach. Because of this training build and this race experience, I now know what I need to work on, which is exciting, and I am looking forward to the next training. I originally was pretty nervous to sign up for another marathon right away, just because I'm worried about mental burnout. When you work so hard for something, it can be tough to kind of jump into another training block right away, which is why a lot of people don't do marathons back to back. But I do still feel pretty motivated right now. I'm really excited to get back into it. And honestly, I was very fortunate this past training block to remain injury-free. So I don't have any of those niggles or issues lingering that could further prevent me from hitting a good training block the second time around. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video and listening to me reflect on my training as well as my marathon race. I hope I was able to encourage someone else out there to chase a big goal, because ultimately the race means less than the training itself. It's the times where no one's watching that mean way more and ultimately make you a better runner. Thank you guys again so much for following along, and I will see you in the next video. Happy Thanksgiving.